Greetings everyone and welcome back to Joe's Metal Mancave. Got another collection update for you today. Let's get into it.
Satan is our pal.
Alright, to kick things off, we're going to talk about both a classic and controversial album. What could we be talking about? Well, we're talking about Dimmu Borgir's Spiritual Black Dimensions. So for what it's worth, this was probably one of the first black metal albums I ever heard. Bought it well over 20 years ago. It was originally released in 1999. And way back then I absolutely loved it and used to play the living shit out of it. But maybe about 10 years ago, I don't know if I was just going through some period of just listening to more true and grim and raw black metal or something, but I just was I got this mindset something, and I was like, well, I can't listen to later Dimmu Borgir, that's sellout Dimmu Borgir, or whatever, Stupid, but, I guess let's just go through those phases once in a while. So I sold the album, the CD, and then I was like, yeah, I'm never gonna listen to this again. So then about 2 years ago, I re-listened to the album, and I was like, dude, this is a good album. This is a really fucking good album. It is just fantastic symphonic black metal. So yeah, originally released in 1999, it was the fourth Dimmu Borgir album, and much like all of the Dimmu Borgir albums throughout the 90s, it featured a then new lineup. And ultimately, this lineup collapsed after this album as well. So you have, of course, Shegraf and Selenas, mainstays of Dimmu Borgir all these years. But then we also had Nagash on bass once again. Obviously, he played on Infidel and Darkness Triumphant. You had Sholdal, if I'm saying it right, the drummer who had been with the band since early days too. And then lead guitarist Astanu, who was an Australian musician who briefly played with the band for 2 years. What's really cool about this album, and special, at least to me, is that it's the last, truly symphonic black metal in the sense that it's, symphonic keyboards as opposed to the more symphonic, real orchestra thing they would do the following 2 years, and with puritanical euphoric misanthropia, and of course, all these years later, they're now just a pure symphonic band. They're not. I mean, I heard that last album and I was like, is there any black metal on this album at all? But no, they're just like a symphonic metal band now. But this is the last, stereotypical symphonic black metal album they put out. It features, again, then a new member, Mustas, on keyboards. And I think out of all the keyboard players they had, he was absolutely the most talented, just creates such a rich and darkly evil atmosphere throughout these music. As well as just having really great piano parts, and just really great neoclassical sounding keyboards. But really the whole band is just at the top of their game on this one. I mean, Shegraf sounds awesome. He's not just doing typical raspy black metal vocals. He's doing some growly stuff, some spoken parts and stuff like that. I mean, he sounds really good. The guitars are really good. Aston has some phenomenal leads, just some killer riffs from both guitars. The drummer Jodal, he sounds awesome, and Nagash's basses. Yeah, that's somewhere in there. But yeah, man, this is a great album. I love songs like Reptile, Behind the Curtains of Night Phantasmagoria, The Blazing Monolith of Defiance, and Grotesquerie Concealed Within Measureless Magic are just phenomenal, awesome fucking symphonic black metal songs. And the thing that's always sort of perplexed me about this album, and a lot of Dimmu Borgir covers, is the album cover. I've always I always wondered what's with the whole I don't know, bondage angel thing we got going on here. It's so and obviously the late 90s, there was a lot of this kind of going on in a lot of album covers, but it was more prevalent in the gothic doom metal scene, not so much the black metal scene, but as you could probably guess, a lot of bands within the black metal scene would do something very similar with their album covers, probably because of Dimmu Borgir. But I always wondered, is this the same chick that is giving Galder a blowjob in the booklet of puritanical euphoric misanthropia, or who is she? And I couldn't figure out who she was. There's no, there's no credit or anything. But I found out who the photographer was, and he also did several other classic black metal shots throughout the 90s for Covenant, Satyricon, a few other bands, but yeah, of course, Dimmu Borgir. But yeah, really interesting cover, and I don't know, not really the most black metal cover, but nevertheless. So then inside here we have the lyrics and a picture of the band. I think I'm kind of disappointed with this LP though, because like the picture here is like sort of a grainy picture. Like you think they could have used like a full res photo and gotten a good photo in there. I don't know, but that's what I guess they decided. So that's Nuclear Blast, just being cheap motherfuckers. It is a black vinyl here. But yeah, if you are like me and you sold this album several years ago, and to give it a shot, I think it's just phenomenal black, symphonic black metal, and it's definitely, the last true gem of the Dimmu Borgir catalog. As a long time ago when Pure Chemical came out, I really loved it, but that was just one of those albums that didn't really hold the test of time with me either. And who knows, maybe a couple of years down the road, I'll rebuy that and be like, oh, this sounds pretty good too. But we'll see, I guess. But at least for now, if you haven't listened to Spiritual Black Dimensions, give it a listen. Great fucking album. All right, continuing on, we're going to talk about not one, but two albums from Hades, and they are Again Shall Be and The Dawn of the Dying Sun. So, Hades, yeah, they are one of the original Norwegian black metal bands, originally formed back in 1992 by Jorn Tunsberg. They are almost certainly the first band to really draw a lot of influence from Bathory's Viking period, or their more epic period of Bathory, and then combine it with a black metal sound. But for reasons, and I'm going to kind of go into that in a little bit, they've always remained a very underground and very underrated band, even though these first two albums are fucking phenomenal. Just really, really good. I've been aware of these albums for many, many years. It was just one of those things that, like, unlike a lot of the other Norwegian bands from that era, like, they haven't been repressed like 100 times, In fact, I looked it up, and there was only 4 pressings of the first album throughout the 90s, and it wasn't again until 2010 that there was some repressings. And if you compare that to like Mayhem or Darkthrone, any of those bands, literally those bands have like 100 or so, repressings of those albums. It's pretty crazy, actually. Maybe not that many, but you know what I'm saying. It's readily available. The Hades stuff, which was originally released on Full Moon Productions, was a lot more limited and hard to get, and because of that, I just sort of passed it up over the years. I didn't want to pay like a shit ton of money for it, and then I just, whatever, I guess it just wasn't a priority for me to get in my collection, and I don't really know why. But yeah, I heard it way back in the day, loved it, yeah. So these new reissues are done by Nuclear War Now Productions, and they are, as you can see, on cassette, but they are also available on CD, and I believe maybe even vinyl too. I'll have to double check that for you. But yeah, Hades was one of the first, bands to really take that Bathory sound in a more black metal direction. They do it wonderfully, but they remain underground and very underrated. And I think the reasons for that is, there's a couple different reasons. The first one being is because their name is Hades, and there was a couple other bands named Hades that came before them, most notably the American thrash metal band, who, to be honest, I don't think I've ever heard, but at the time, in 1982, Hades from America had broken up. So then, some years later, the band ended up having to change their name to Hades Almighty, because I think maybe the Hades from America had a copyright on it, or maybe they even threatened to sue them. I don't really know. But, yeah, so I think maybe back in the day, maybe there was some confusion on it. Maybe, like, some people didn't realize this was a new band or something. But the other thing is that, Jorn Tunsberg, in 1992, he torched a church with Vargakirnes, and ended up spending, I think, 2 or 3 years in prison. And he didn't get convicted and put in jail until late 1993, when, obviously after Varg killed Euronymous and the quote-unquote shit hit the fan, a lot of the black metal musicians who had torched churches and murdered people and done grave desecration all got arrested and did some prison time. And Jorn was certainly no different. So I think because of that fact, he wasn't able to play live, he wasn't able to, promote the band as much as he would have wanted to. But interestingly, I heard that The Dawn of the Dying Sun, the majority of the riffs and the songs were actually wrote while he was in prison. This, of course, didn't get released until 1997, whereas Again Shall Be came out in 1994. So both these albums came out while he was in prison. And I think the third reason being why this band has always been a bit underappreciated is because back in 1992-93, comparatively to the rest of the Norwegian black metal scene, they didn't sound anything like it. It was much more epic, obviously the Bathory influence is, in a lot of early black metal, but it was just so much more obvious with Hades, and I think, by 93, 94, when black metal started to blow up a little bit more and become more of an underground phenomenon, it was people wanted to hear more of the Burzum sound, the Dark Throne sound, or Mayhem, Immortal, so on and so forth. That was what was more popular. And yeah, you might say, well, Enslaved and Helheim was doing stuff around that time too, but like, if you listen to those albums, they're a lot more brutal, a lot more, maybe traditionally black metal, even though like epic characteristics are certainly there in those albums. Hades is different because it's much more mid-paced. There's sort of a progressive touch to this, and yeah, just really epic, and even in some cases, kind of folky, and there's even like some dungeon synth characteristics as far as the keyboards are concerned, but really great albums. And these reissues, of course, come with some bonus tracks, which is very cool. On the Dawn of the Dying Sun, you get a cover of For All Those Who Have Died by Bathory, and you get a live version of Alone Walking, which was recorded in 1996, which I believe Bjorn was still in jail at the time, which is interesting because, and I guess some people know this, but maybe not everyone knows this, but the Norwegian prison system has a very, very relaxed system where I believe with like good behavior and so on and so forth, you can actually leave prison on the weekends, and this has been pretty well noted throughout the years because like Faust from Emperor, before his incarceration was over, he did some session work for some bands, and obviously other musicians throughout the 90s did that too. I believe Sam Laffey, when he was in jail, he did some session work for Arcturus probably. Yeah, I think he was in jail when Arcturus put their first EP out. So it's very interesting that they have that system, but I guess it just kind of puts into perspective that like if people fuck up in Norway, like at least the system like is a little more relaxed and it's trying to rehabilitate them rather than just punish them for 20, 30 years and basically steal a good portion of their lives. Which, I mean, in some cases, obviously, it's justified, but at the same time, like, I think it's kind of crazy that, like, if you kill someone in America, like, your whole life is fucked. I mean, you're gonna be in jail for like 40 years or something, Anyway, I'm not trying to, go off on a little whatever about that. But anyway, again, Shall Be, originally released in 1994. This is the debut, and man, oh man, what a great album, dude. So many classic songs on here, and I forgot to mention this, but the Alone Walking demo tape is included on this one, which is very cool. It's all the songs from the tape, son of a bitch, would be re-recorded on the next two albums, and but yeah, it's kind of really interesting seeing the early drafts of them, and just really cool to have that demo as well. So then I don't have to buy it separately, which I probably would guess it's been re-released at some point. And then there's the Dawn of the Dying Sun, another black cassette, and a very nice booklet for this one as well. There you can see that. Very cool artwork using a traditional art piece. Don't ask me who the original is, but I'm sure it's on the archives. But yeah, I mean, really cool band portraits. And I think another thing that may have held Hades back is that they didn't necessarily have the typical black metal look. I mean, obviously they had the spikes and the capes and, the gauntlets and all that kind of stuff, but they didn't have the corpse paint. And I think back in those days, too, a lot of people were, like, judging black metal. Like, you had to have the upside-down crosses. You had to have the corpse paint. If you didn't have that, you weren't black metal. So I think that's another reason why these guys have always remained underrated throughout the years. But, I mean, if you know, you know. I have known for a long time, and I obviously have sat on it, but here we are, finally getting them in the collection. I've played these so many times since getting these a few weeks ago. I actually got them at the Metal Thread Festival, found a guy selling them for like, I don't know, I think like $14 each, which honestly is kind of a lot for a cassette tape, but I guess cassettes are continuing to make a comeback, and much like records and everything else, the prices continue to go up, so I don't know, we'll see. But yeah, they sound great. Of course, having a proper sound system will make a cassette sound better. There's still people out there, like a buddy of mine who's just like, cassettes fucking suck, but I think, I'm like 100% sure he's just like pulling this memory out of like some 90s memory of like playing old Metallica cassettes or whatever, and like they sound like shit because he had like a fucking little dumb boombox that had shitty speakers, but whatever, that's okay. I have come to really love tapes, and I'm glad I can get them for a cheaper amount than, a CD or a record, so yeah, I'm gonna go with it. So yeah, fuck yeah, Hades, man. Alright, continuing on, we're going to talk about a relatively new band known as Autumnfall and their two albums, Bleak and Ghosts of Light. So, Autumnfall is a project of Jussi Hänninen, who is the original guitarist and mastermind of the band Fall of Leaf, which, if you you watched my previous video, you know I am a huge fan of and was very happy to recently get their re-release of their debut album, Even Scent Ever Fading, in my collection. These albums were both originally self-released digitally by the band through Mancave in 2001 and 2002. But much like the Fall of the Leaf, were picked up by Ardua Music and put out on compact disc back in early mid-March. Autumn Fall is seen as the spiritual successor of early Fall of the Leaf, and when I first heard that, I was like, dude, that's fucking awesome, man. And I know what you're gonna think. This is gonna be just like a recreation of the early Fall of the Leaf albums, and well, it's not exactly true. Certainly, Jussi Hänninen has a very distinctive and, for lack of any better word, just a very, typically Finnish style of guitar playing. It's very folk influenced sounding, and it's very melodic, and carries a lot of emotional feel to it, and that sound, like from Fall of the Leaf and other projects he's been in over the years, has always been, prevalent in his guitar work, and certainly here as well. But musically speaking, this is much more melodic black metal, and whereas Fall of the Leaf was melodic death metal with minimal black metal characteristics, I would say. Yeah. So yeah, melodic black metal here, and it is very, very good. I mean, I guess you can already kind of guess what this sounds like based on what I said, but if you like really colorful and emotional and just really great riffs and leads and some solos, man, this is great stuff. Vocals are somewhat typical in a raspy style, and drumming is, decent, not great, but really, what makes all this just really great is just, there's the melodic characteristics, and, if you're familiar with Finnish black metal, I mean, you can already guess what to expect here. I mean, all these songs, all of them, but a lot of them just have just what I love about melodic black metal or melodic music in general. It's just, you really feel something when you listen to this stuff, and that's one of the main things when I listen to. I want to feel something. I want there to be a special atmosphere and some sort of sentiment that I'm gonna get from listening to this stuff, and I love it. It's fucking great. I don't know about actual favorites, but I really like the second from last song, the Indifferent on Bleak, and I don't know, but I should have listened to these a little closely and made notes of which ones I like best. But really, just as they flow, just like each song just tells its own little story, and it's just really good stuff, man. So if you like that early Fall of the Leaf stuff, or if you just really dig melodic black metal, I'm obviously again here with a much more cleaner production, nothing grim or raw or true here. But yeah, if you like melodic black metal or just melodic music in general, you are going to enjoy Autumn Fall. Yeah, check it out. Alright, continuing on, we're going to go to the death metal side of things. We're going to talk about the often overlooked but hopefully not forgotten band Phantasm and their 1992 demo, The Abominable. So Phantasm was a Milwaukee, Wisconsin-based death metal band, and not to be confused with the several other bands named Phantasm that popped up in the 80s. Phantasm formed in 1988, put out a couple demos in 91, 92, and then I think like a single or something like that afterwards, and then broke up at like 95. Phantasm is interesting because they do a lot of things that were untypical for death metal at the time. There's I guess traces of like old school death metal in here. There's thrash, there's hardcore, there's like progressive touches, there's more like maybe like techie, there's sort of like some new wave of British heavy metal influences here and there, and some very diverse vocals too. Also for a demo being almost 43 minutes long and having an exceptional production, it is, I mean, better than a lot of full-length albums that were coming out at that time, and man, this is just really cool stuff. And I think another thing that has to be, not overlooked is that they had more of this sort of like comic book kind of look to all their albums. All the artwork was done by bassist Stephen Sommers, who some years later would actually, I believe, become a comic book artist. Couldn't tell you what he's worked on, but he has a very unique style, and he's also worked with bands like Dr. Shrinker, Mad Laughter, and a few other bands from this side of the world. And interesting that I should mention this, because Phantasm has some members who were also in Dr. Shrinker, and I've previously mentioned Dr. Shrinker, and I absolutely love their old demos from the late 80s and early 90s. And Phantasm is another one of those bands that just I don't know, maybe it was the name, maybe it was because these weren't put out as full-length albums, they didn't get the recognition they deserve, but really, if you like diverse and just, you know, really kind of, maybe something like a mixture of like Autopsy or Atheist, you know, just more progressive and just, just diverse and just really different death metal, especially for something put out in 1992. So, yeah, there's the front cover, and this tape was put out by local label Dread Records. Dread Records has put out a lot of old recordings from, you know, bands from this side of the world. Of course, you know, many other bands from around the world, like the Hornet tape I showed in the last collection update. But yeah, as I was kind of mentioned earlier, you can see it has this comic book artwork, which is very cool. And I mean, to think that this was originally put out as a demo is just insane. You know, they got that, I can't think of the movie right now, but maybe you know what that's from. The Reanimator, yes, it has that Reanimator artwork there. Such a fucking cool movie from like, what is it, maybe 85 or 86 or something. Yeah, and there's an old picture of the band there too. Yeah, really cool stuff, man. Unfortunately, these guys really didn't go on to much after that. Some of the guys had a band, I already mentioned, called Mad Laughter, which I believe was more like straightforward thrash, and but other than that, yeah, not a whole lot, which is a real shame because they were super talented and there was a lot of promise here, but just, I guess, maybe the name or just the fact that maybe they struggled to find a label just held them back, and it's a real shame. But man, if you like just, man, really, just something really different as far as death metal is concerned, man, you're gonna really dig it. So look it up, Phantasm, The Abominable. Well, that'll do it, guys. I'll see you next time on Joe's Metal Man Cave vlog.